Welcome to the Nerds and Friends podcast, our new series, I guess, where we're going to do Lego time with Josh and Jake.
What's up, guys? I'm
Hey.
Jake. Thank you for having me. Glad to be a part of this new session.
I'm sure this will be the first of many times you'll be coming on the podcast. This will be a fun time. And it looks like today we are doing a mimic from D&D. Is that correct?
It is, as long as I can get this shot right so I can show it off properly. But we'll get in depth, of course.
I am very excited because I also have what looks like a very innocuous chest on my desk that you gave me for Christmas here. And the inside of it, I think, will look suspiciously like that Lego. I have the key somewhere else, so we'll save that reveal for later. But
So yeah, as of late, I just I've been dealing with, the typical life stresses and anxieties, and I found that actually building Lego and just chilling out is a surprisingly therapeutic thing to do. And then when you can get into like your other hobbies like D&D or like maybe Marvel perhaps,
yes,
there's a lot of nostalgic childlike fun to be had that is still, at least in my opinion, rather therapeutic. So
oh,
I
absolutely.
love it.
I think there's a term for it, and I forget what it is. It's like VAC or something. It's something that's fun and engaging, but it engages both sides of your brain, so logic and physicality and coordination, which Legos are one such thing where you need to look at instructions, make sure you're building things the right way, but then you're actually doing it with your hands. So it is very therapeutic.
And there's also that small sense of accomplishment and pride you get of like, hey, I built that and like I
Yep.
solved a small task, I created something, or to just look at what you have built in the past and be like, hey, that's really cool.
Yep.
I remember I turned a point of, something that could have been a negative maybe into something that's now such a cool, positive experience that I love it now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's a great way to get dopamine, good way to
Mm-hmm.
relax, and we can just hang out and nerd out while you do that. So you mentioned Marvel. I was
Yes.
just scrolling through social media before I hopped on here, and there's a rumor going around. I don't know if it's true that
Mm-hmm.
Henry Cavill will be making an appearance in Deadpool and Wolverine as a Wolverine variant. He's from he played Superman in the
Sure,
recently
sure.
ended DC ones, yeah, and The
I'm just trying to
Witcher.
think of what sort of variant. Well, A, what variant would he play? And then B, obviously, like, is he the right man for the job?
I
Those are the two questions that come to mind.
The way he bulked up in Man of Steel, I could see him being a Wolverine variant, but he is, I think, Hugh Jackman is beloved as Wolverine and his performance has become iconic, but when you compare him to the comics, he's very different from that character. So I'm surprised they didn't go with someone more close to the comics for a variant that's going to show up for a cameo in the movie. Like
So,
honestly, if I was casting for like a variant of Wolverine that was more comic accurate, I'd get either a Canadian actor who's kind of like short and stocky, or like Daniel Radcliffe was rumored for a while to be appearing, because he's been bulking up for some other project, and he shot down those rumors and said no, he won't be doing it. But
I
yeah,
could see that though. That'd be pretty cool.
yeah, right. Like he
Um,
could he could do that. It'd be cool.
so you'll have to fill in my memory gap for me, but was was there a Wolverine in the like James McAvoy Professor X saga, the new class?
Yeah,
And
Hugh
if so,
Jackman played him.
was it Hugh Jackman?
It
Okay.
was. He mainly cameoed,
Hmm.
except for like X-Men Days of Future Past.
Hmm.
Which, and just for internet transparency, I have not seen Dark Phoenix or X-Men Apocalypse. Um, Days of Future
Neither have I.
Past was the
Yeah.
most recent X-Men live action thing I saw.
I think I saw Dark Phoenix actually, but it was a while ago and it does not ring any bells other than one
Yeah,
of those like I think I saw that
yeah.
bell. Um
I remember
hmm.
Days of Future Past, which I very much enjoy as a movie. That one teased at the end X-Men Apocalypse, and I never saw Apocalypse or Dark Phoenix. So
Okay. Interesting. Well, yeah, I mean, cool, I guess.
if it's even true, it's just a rumor at this
We'll
point. But
see. Yeah.
you know
That's
what's
kind of
not a
how I
rumor
feel.
that's crazy is they're doing the X-Men '97 animated show.
Like a reboot?
No, a sequel to the old show. Like it takes place in 1997, Or wait,
Is it live action or
no,
is
it's
it
animated. Same
cartoon? Okay.
cartoon, same voice actors. But I guess like the trailer came out and I never watched the original, so I was like, hey, that's cool, but whatever. But a bunch of people were saying, oh, it's the same art style as before, same voice actors. This is really cool. But then it comes out in like a month and they just fired the showrunner like out of nowhere from Disney. So I don't know more details beyond that, but I thought it was interesting.
So if it's the original X-Men cartoon that like I grew up knowing and loving,
I'm pretty
um,
sure it's that one.
dope. First of all, I mean, I'm
Yes.
I'm pumped for that. Because as far as I knew, that was actually the closest to canon that anything has been so far.
Yeah.
Because it was pretty much like a direct cartoon adaptation, and I'm open for being corrected, but I'm almost certain it was like the closest cartoon adaptation of the comic book at the time, which would make sense because in that timeline they do a lot of flirting, if you will, with like Captain America, Superman. Um, they
Superman.
do a, or I'm sorry, not super.
I was like,
Ooh,
what? That's a
there had to
crossover
be
I
one.
missed. Goodness.
Had to be one slip, right? Spider-Man, and of course,
Oh yeah.
Spider-Man. How can I mistake the two? But um, yeah, there are a lot of like reaching out for help, and hey, we bumped into this guy in
Yeah.
this. I mean, Rogue absorbs Captain Marvel's powers.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That's like a whole thing at one point. So I'm wondering if they're going to play into that. I've thought that as soon as I saw that they were doing X-Men in the MCU, I was
Yeah.
wondering if they were going to do that because I know there were talks of Brie Larson stepping down from Captain Marvel. She
Oh
wasn't
gosh.
sure if she was going to. I mean, it was just rumors. There was nothing that I could
Yeah.
even quote, honestly, but just things of like, oh, I don't think Brie Larson's going to. If they were to go that route, I could see that being the way they did it.
Yeah.
Because
If they introduce a live action Rogue and then she absorbs the powers from and yeah, possibly.
Rogue's like it's still when Rogue like is not in control of her power, so she's like
Oh.
sapping you dry.
Yeah. So
So
it's like
she
yeah.
essentially kills her. And
Oh
it's straight up,
gosh.
it's from an introductory handshake at that point. Isn't that something?
Whoa. That's crazy.
And again, it's been a long time. So if somebody is
Yeah.
watching this and they're like, that's not how it happened. I mean, tell me. I'll
Yeah.
gladly go back and I'm probably gonna go back and watch the original now since you told me there's a new one coming out.
Yeah, like the
Um,
trailer, it starts out with like Professor X dying, and so it's the X-Men going on without him. But it's like in the old
okay,
animation style. Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
If I can, for just a second before we dive into this mimic, then since you've got me on the
Yes.
Marvel tip, I feel like it would be wrong of me if I didn't show the
Yeah.
Marvel builds that I
I
have.
I concur.
So it's not fair. You've gotten to see them before anybody else has. So
Yes. Yes.
we have to act just as surprised, right?
Okay, I'll put on my acting face.
Okay, perfect. So first things first, I'll give you all just a little hint, right? Oh, make sure it's there for you.
Dun dun do 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 do. Your phone is a little frozen, but that is okay. I love that it came with a volume one cassette on there.
Volume two on the back if my phone would decide
Ah, there we
to
go. There we go. Oh, it's got
catch
volume
up.
one and volume two. Very
Okay.
nice. Very nice.
Yes, yes. All right. So next piece then, and forgive me, I'm sorry that I've not got the camera down just yet.
That is okay. Oh, that's awesome.
If that's not a
What's
hint,
the? Oh, I was trying to see. I was like, what is all those stats? And it's just I am Groot. I like it. Very good.
all
It's
right.
interesting that they specified from the Infinity Saga as opposed to. I think the only two post Infinity Saga appearances of Groot are Thor 4 and Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
That's a leg. So the reason it's there is for Lego purposes, actually. So Lego
Ah,
does a
like
ton
a
of
full
different.
set and everything. Okay.
Hmm. Well, no, they'll do different like collections, if you will.
Oh, okay.
And that one just happened to be that year's Infinity Saga collection.
Nice. Very nice.
So some of them, some builds, honestly, I didn't know this until I got deeper into it, are discontinued. You can't actually like
Like
buy
they're
them
limited
anymore.
time.
You can't get them from the store, at least. You would have to get them like resale or something.
Dang.
So
Okay. I'm
I
sure they
thought
use
that
that
was
to
pretty cool.
justify hiking up those prices. So that's smart. That's
Oh
smart.
yeah.
Yeah.
It also adds to the collector's fun of it. So I like that part.
Yeah. That's
But
cool.
I had to change my camera angle just a little bit because this one's gonna be an
Groot's
interesting one.
Groot's a pretty tall one, so that makes sense.
Yes. So let's see. Honestly, I think I'm gonna lose the mount for a second and just
That's cool.
freehand it.
That's cool. Oh, that's an awesome Groot. I love that.
All right.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
welcome to Groot. And the thing that I thought was or I found really cool is like even down to his fingers, he is extremely articulable. Is that the right word?
Yeah, yeah. Like just you can position him in a lot of ways, more so than most
Hmm.
Lego models. That's very cool.
Even if I had the free hand, like I had him for a while there at a bent legged position,
Kind of like
and
mid dance.
it's yeah, and
Yeah.
it's really cool. And then it seems like Groot may have found a way to, walk on his own and gotten into some trouble that he should not have.
Ah.
Because I stumbled upon
Oh
this one day.
no. He's been venomized.
Yes, and I thought this was really cool because even down to like his
Little
little
flowers.
leaflets up here, it's now a
Oh,
tentacle.
that is
I
awesome.
thought that was so cool. Tongue
I th-
comes out. I mean, his little smile moves on both.
oh, that's sick. I love that. I think we talked
These
about
little
the first time you
chunks.
showed me that, like I was like, if Groot was venomized, that'd be terrifying with his growth and regeneration properties. That would be
Hmm.
very bad with a symbiote. So,
Absolutely.
dude, those are awesome.
I
I
think
love
that'd
that.
be uh, a great, I would say, episode, I guess, for the What If series.
Oh yeah, that'd be very cool. Are they doing a season 3 of that? I've only seen the first season. I haven't started season 2 yet.
I do believe so. While
Nice.
we're at it, I'll show you my space station.
Very nice.
Just because I'm here, I was able to get it to, spell my name out there. A little hubris, if you will. We've got the baby
Do they
ride
have
here.
customizable rounded pieces like that so you can spell a name? Is that like expressly how they designed it, or did you like customize that?
So it came with enough pieces for this to originally say space, and just conveniently enough, my name worked to
That's
do a
awesome.
little rearranging.
That is awesome.
We've got our greenery up here because you got to
Nice.
make sure you're keeping some earth.
Yes.
Uh, got our astronaut out here, making sure that that pesky alien in the back hasn't done any damage for us.
Very nice.
Mission control, making sure that everybody's ready to go before they send off. I call this little girl Wendy because I mean, tell me
Yeah, I
that's
see.
not
Yeah, that's
you
naming her
just
anything
can't.
else would be weird at that point, you know.
All right, so this one's pretty cool because it does move. I just wish it were motorized. I could probably get that kit.
Oh yeah, but we were talking about like lighting kits for Legos are pretty straightforward and affordable, but motors are pretty expensive.
Exactly. But once the gravity takes effect,
That's awesome.
got a cool little light
We
feature
have
here in the
liftoff. Oh, nice.
meteor. Yeah, just some little things here.
That is very cool. I love that.
Let's see here. Looks like
I had a question about Jake's station there, and I totally it came and went, and I forgot it. So,
no
um,
worries.
I did
Is
just
my other
see on
screen
the
still up?
computer. Now it went
Yeah,
away.
I thought so. Um, let's see. It says I'm on my way back in. I don't know what happened here. Okay. Rain.
We're back. We're back. It's good.
Okay,
How
okay.
it
I'm
was
not
before.
sure. Not sure what
Technology's
happened there.
weird.
Sorry
It's
about
all
that.
good. No, you're fine.
All right.
Well, and I was gonna say, I
Before
like that you showed us the Groot Lego before we go
Mhm.
into the D&D Lego, the Mimic, because you get how those things tie in together, right? Vin Diesel, who voices Groot, is a big D&D player in real life.
you you you've told me that. You
Yeah,
have told me that, and that's pretty cool.
that's what I've heard from people who have met him. They said he's big into D&D, which is very cool. I got you. Oh yeah,
I'll do just one
I
more
lost you
quick
for a
one.
second. Ooh, very cool.
So this was a Viking village that I
Nice.
picked up when I was on my motorcycle. So unfortunately, one of the bags fell off. That would have been a nice little archer's tower, but she's gone.
Now you can launch people off the little like fallen rope bridge and make it like a slide.
Yeah, it's war torn. That's what we'll call it.
Very realistic.
Blacksmithing forge.
Oh, that's cool. I
We've
love how
got
it goes off and you can see the inside. That's sweet.
yeah. There's a little bit of movement here. You can stoke the fire,
Oh,
get the
that's
flames
awesome.
moving. Um, now that I've done this for the first time, I'm gonna have to get some better camera equipment to show off my Legos properly. This is your longhouse area,
Nice.
and then I don't know if my phone will even be able to get in there, but this little area opens up as well. It's little
Oh,
goods
cool.
storage. Yeah, I'll have to get a nice little micro camera or something later. But
Yeah,
then
they've got to have like a
my
zoom something. I don't know. That's cool.
my final, I saved what I consider the best for last at the moment, for the Marvel's sake at least.
Oh yes, the Quinjet.
Yes. So this one was a lot of fun to build.
And I
It
love
is
that you reconstructed the scene from the first Avengers of, what are you afraid of a little lightning? I'm not overly fond of what follows. And then, right before Thor shows up, I love that. That's sick. I love that.
so
So
the
that
goal.
one's gonna have it's gonna have Natasha Romanoff. It's gonna have Iron Man. It's gonna have Thor and Loki. Those are the four, right?
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Nice. Very
I
cool.
want to eventually get my space to where I could suspend that, like in air,
Oh,
so that it
that'd be
looks like
cool.
it's actually flying. I think that would be a really cool way to show that one off.
That'd be cool. Yeah, and also, I mean, all you need is like a ceiling mount and then some kind of like strong, I don't know, not fishing spool, but something thin, not super visible, you know. Because
Honestly,
that
fishing
thing,
line would work.
yeah, because that thing weighs easily less than 5 pounds. Probably like what, a pound, maybe two.
It's got a decent little weight to it. Maybe I'd say two. I don't know. I'm not a good judge of weights.
Yeah.
So,
Whenever I have to
um,
think about how much something weighs, I think in like terms of like I compare it to like gym dumbbells, you know, where I'm like,
yeah,
okay, if I had a 5 pounder and that, it's like my little mental scale. Oh,
yeah.
this is a
I'm
great
I'm
angle
no
I
good
got
at
for
that.
you.
Is this here? Can
Yeah,
you? Is that the right orientation and all?
yeah,
Okay, cool. So while we still talk about some more nerd stuff, I figured we should finally get this mimic built after all.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
So apparently it can be buckled. It's gonna hold 4 to 5 sets of dice, which that's pretty cool. I didn't realize that at the time.
That's awesome.
And it's gonna stay open. But why would you leave a mimic open? That kind of defeats the purpose.
Well, it must latch shut, and then if you open it, it remains open. So it's got like two different modes, I'd imagine.
I guess for display purposes, but like in terms of like deploying a mimic, I'm not gonna
Yeah,
just
it'd
be like,
be
hey,
it'd be
it's a mimic.
chomping at you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's cool. I guess there's some stickers in this. Nice one,
Oh,
nice one.
that's awesome.
Should I turn this back this way? Is this an easier? Is this the
Honestly,
right
I
orientation?
think as we're building it, we'll just be able to see you working. For
Okay.
your orientation, we don't really need to see the instructions unless there's cool artwork and you want to show it to the camera, you know?
Not really. The only cool thing that I noticed immediately is that there's a sticker of an actual
Oh,
mimic eye.
I like that. That's
So
awesome.
that's a nice little touch I'll be adding later.
Very cool.
Um, so yeah, let's
You
just
know, one
dive
thing as a
in.
DM is that, you know, mimics have a certain stat block and it has that capability where you can have them take the shape of anything and they retain their stats. And that's the only thing I have
Hmm.
an issue with is I want to like I've done some homebrew adjustments to Mimic where there's a potion bottle that's a Mimic, or you can have larger objects, smaller objects, and just tweak the stats based on that to make it reflect that they're able to turn into that type of object, you know? So some fun stuff with it.
Like kind of like Kirby almost, but a mimic.
Yeah, essentially.
Is
'Cause I
that
mean,
what you mean?
well, the one time I had someone who they had this was me, and I had a healing potion that they got from someone, and it was I had said, okay, in my mind, this is a mimic, and like 5 sessions later, they were in a hard fight, and they popped a mimic health potion, and then the mimic attacked them as soon as they. I mean, it had actual health potion in it, but the bottle itself was a mimic, and it was small, but like as it revealed itself, I had it expand a bit, but I had it use normal mimic stats. So it was like pretty durable for something the size of a potion bottle. But when I want something bigger, like if a house is a mimic or a carriage, I wanted to make a more difficult than just a standard, 68 hit point mimic. So yeah.
I've never heard the concept of a house as a mimic until now, and I don't know if you caught that, but my jaw just dropped a little bit.
Yes.
That'd be terrifying
Oh yeah.
because I'm still fairly new to the whole D&D scene, thanks to you.
Well, thank you.
Uh, but I'm immediately hooked. I mean, huge Baldur's Gate fan. I like how they were able to like make video gameized D&D to the best version. I mean, still, it. I'm looking for the DLCs for that whenever they come out, of
Yeah.
course, because they're just with as much as there is in D&D. There's got to be more to the game, but
But still, I mean, I think
it's.
it is the closest I've ever gotten to playing D&D without playing D&D, you know?
I agree, and I think it's really cool uh how different, like how you were saying how you would employ a mimic versus in Baldur's Gate, there are mimics. I mean,
I,
spoiler alert, I guess.
I never encountered one. I haven't finished the game, so I never encountered a mimic the whole time I was playing.
So the only, just to continue in, and again, sorry guys, but cat's out of the bag as far as spoilers are concerned. So there we are.
It's
But
been out for a
the,
while. I think we're in the clear.
the only mimic that I ever encountered was obviously a chest. Um, and it was honestly, obviously a mimic at that. Like
Really?
it was set, yeah, it was set in an area where like one of five chests were the actual chest. So it was obvious the other four were going to be mimics. And
Uh,
so I just said, I'll fight all of them. I don't care. I want to see how mimics are in this game. So I just went at the first one. I didn't even try to pick the lock or access. I just attack.
nice.
And yeah, it did its mimic thing. And I mean, 4 against 1 with like my entire team's all first turns being before that mimic. I
Oh yeah.
downed it before it ever attacked.
Yeah.
So, but it was still a cool way to see. But like
I'm
a
surprised
house
when you
mimic,
attacked the first mimic, the rest didn't come to their fellow mimic's defense.
I wonder maybe because of the proximity or something. I don't know, but they all stayed hidden until I attacked them individually.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, if I was the DM in Baldur's Gate, I would have if you're smart enough to attack one, I'd be like, well now you gotta fight all of them at once, you know? So yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I was ready for it. That would have definitely been more challenging because they were rather, you know, low impact.
Yeah.
But mimic is a house. That that would be interesting.
Yep.
Do mimics get to choose when they reveal themselves, or is it like upon interaction?
That's a good question. I've always done it where I bet they have it listed in the rules and I'd have to look it up, but I've always done it where typically until you interact with it in a way where the mimic has to reveal itself. So if there's something where you have to, like with a chest, from the outside it looks like a chest, and then when you open it, you're seeing inside its mouth. It doesn't have a way to conceal that. And so it'd be the same with like a potion bottle. Once you open it, it has no choice but to reveal itself. But yeah, I'm gonna look it up now. I'm curious. Give me a second. I'll pull up my.
So
I got new
yeah,
glasses and they're super reflective, so you'll probably be able to read it in the reflection of my glasses. But
you're good. the reason I ask is because to explore that mimic as a house thought a little further, how deep into the house could the players get before they realized they were inside a mimic? Like, could it disguise its at that large of a scale? Could it disguise its insides a little?
I think it would have certain rooms where if they were able to unlock the door to that room, they'd be like, "Why are there teeth in here?" Ah, you know. Let's see.
Yeah,
So the mimic can use its action to polymorph into an object or back into its true amorphous form. Its statistics are the same in each form. Um, so it's an action, it's a choice. So while the mimic remains motionless, it is indistinguishable from an ordinary object. So let's see, they have a little expanded thing down here. Da, da, da. So it looks like it says when potential prey blunders into its reach, the monster sprouts its teeth and attacks. And then it has that adhesive property that isn't talked about much, but
so
oh, and it
Venus
says
flytrap style.
yeah, and it says cunning hunters, mimics live and hunt alone, though they occasionally share their feeding grounds with other creatures. Although most mimics have only predatory intelligence, a rare few evolve greater cunning and the ability to carry on simple conversations in common or undercommon. Such mimics might allow safe passage through the domains or provide useful information in exchange for food. Interesting. I did not know that.
I didn't know a mimic could speak. That's crazy.
I'm going to use that to the great detriment of my players in future games. So I love that tidbit of knowledge.
I mean, you have to, right?
Yes.
It's kind of like the rule. If there's any way to throw a wrench in the works, the
Oh,
wrench must be
I'm gonna
thrown
make
immediately.
like a tribe of mimics that shed their solitary hunter ways and make a tribe, and one will like lead the players into a trap set by mimics who are themselves part of the trap. Yes. Ooh, yes.
That's it's it's impressive, but also terrifying how quickly you came up with that.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Yes, that's all you say. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
What
What
is
did I do
either in
wrong
Baldur's
here?
Gate or D&D? What is your favorite encounter or like monster you fought? What's been your highlight in Baldur's Gate or D&D?
Hmm. Let's see here. That's a good one. Well, also it's hard to say because I know you haven't beaten the game yet, so I don't want to give you too many spoilers.
Yes.
Um,
I've seen enough on the internet at this point that I'm okay with it, but viewers, if you haven't finished Baldur's Gate 3 and plan to, do not watch this part.
so yeah, I mean, probably my favorite little mission arc, if you will, was the House of Hope mission. Do you know
Ooh,
what
I
that
don't know
one
what that
was?
is now.
Okay,
I barely made
so
it into Act 2 before my ADHD steamrolled me into finishing Baldur's Gate, so
no worries. Again, anybody who has not gotten this far, I'm telling you, you should probably just tune out now. Like I'll give
we're
you
gonna
a
have
timing.
chapters in this on YouTube. You can just skip ahead 5 minutes, you know.
Yeah. So the House of Hope is essentially it's like a misnomer almost. It's when you go and explore hell for the first
Oh,
time.
that's
Yes,
cool.
and it's really cool. And like the final boss in that, depending on the choices you made before, is Raphael, like devil
Oh,
himself.
dang. Okay.
Yes. And I mean that mission took me hours to
Yeah.
complete from start to finish. Um, and it was just so cool, all of the different little aspects of hell that they
Yeah.
included to make it seem genuinely like a destination rather than like something biblical or mythological or whatever you choose to subscribe to.
Kind of
But
like its own
it,
like plane of existence where there are creatures and entities that dwell there.
yep,
That's cool.
there were like rules. Here are how things go, and like it was terrible, obviously,
Yeah.
and sure,
Not a
like
place a
you
mortal
only
would
got
want to be. Yeah.
and you were only in one small piece of it, so it was just like
That's
it kind
cool.
of gave depth to hell, if you will,
Yeah.
which was interesting in my humble opinion.
I think the scale they managed to achieve in what I saw that game was extremely impressive, where you had free reign to get a very detailed exploration and interactive like experience with places, but there was always this suggestion that we're in this one place and there's so much more around, whether you can actually go there in game or not. So that's a pretty cool feature.
Yeah, I wish I realized it when I had started playing that it wasn't, or that it rather was linear,
Yeah.
because I thought for sure, oh, I'll just go back to this later on. I want to go as far as I can now to like level up, and then I'll come back and do this and this. And there were a few things that I would have just done differently. But
Okay.
all in all, I don't have enough interest to replay.
Yeah. Well, and for me, that's really what got me because I started out. First off, one of the things that kind of oh, that's cool. That's a good base. I like it. I assume there's going to be a shell around it to make the exterior look more chest-like, but I'm all right.
Yeah, I've got some brown pieces here. It looks like because probably the mouth, the inside is going to be so red, they just kind of went with
That makes
red
sense.
inside. Oh, fun fact that I learned during my Lego journey, which I thought was really cool. Um,
Yes.
for a lot of the internal pieces that you're just never going to see,
Yeah.
um, they'll be just a random color.
Really
Like in my Venomized group, for example, I had little pink and yellow bricks because
interesting.
they were going to be completely inside. And I looked into it, and again, I'm totally open to correction, but Lego includes like miscolored bricks to include people who can't, like, metaphorically, I guess, to include people who can't afford complete sets, who are still building with mismatched off color bricks, to kind of just foster that sense of we're all building regardless of what bricks we're using.
So hey, if
I
you
thought
need to
that was
like
really cool.
recycle these into a new project, you have more color palettes to choose from.
Mm, kind of, but also to foster that spirit of, is it really about the color of the brick or is it about the build?
That I like that.
And I thought that was really cool because as long
That's
as
really
you're
cool.
building with your imagination, I mean, if it's a pink and a green and a yellow and a blue, but it builds into what you wanted, the color is irrelevant of the brick.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really cool thing for Lego to do as far as
Yeah.
messages to spread.
Yeah. I like that. And I love the freedom of Lego and like the ingenuity to like the encouragement to design things and construct things. I think that's just kind of an inherently cool, fun thing, you know?
I wholeheartedly agree. I'm I'm very glad I decided to get back into this, and I'm glad you wanted me to build this on here because
Yeah. Well, I think this
uh,
should be a new thing where like we'll do your builds, and then if we have guests who are into Legos, they can come on and do a build while we interview. It's just some fun, you know. I think the viewers will
yeah, of
like it too because they get to watch something while they listen, a little more visually engaging than our normal interview formats. So that's really cool.
course. Sorry I made so many mistakes just yet. I
Oh,
promise I'm
that's
not
okay.
I'm not that bad. It's
We
different
can make
because
an I can isolate just that feed from your camera and make a version that's sped up. So if people want to have a little link, they can watch just the quick build, you know.
yeah, I I should have. So they should prove that this is absolutely an impromptu and off the cuff conversation, because now that I think about it, those builds that you see that are like done from start to finish, even in like fairly edited, but like very small, short, fluid takes, like you practice that beforehand.
Yeah,
I am,
or there are time lapses where it's just very, you know,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm ripping these bags open right now. This is the first, I actually saved this from when I got it so that I could build this on here, and we all, whoever's watching, could experience this uh, final product for the first time together. Because I also am very excited to see what it turns out.
I'm already seeing the slope where part of the chest forms a mouth, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing that on there, that's awesome.
It's a really interesting concept.
Yeah.
Um, and apparently there are more um, with like different design styles, and like one has a tongue. So that
Oh.
I've got that one on its way. So
Nice.
once that comes in, I will definitely, hopefully, at least come back here and we can build the mimic with the tongue.
Well, and I also want to explore. I tend not to use miniatures when I play D&D.
Hmm.
I tend to use theater of the mind, but a lot of players do like to have that physical movement and calculating the battlefield that way. Legos are so much more customizable than miniatures. You can change things on the fly. You can design terrain a lot quicker than with miniatures. And I mean, they're essentially gridded already. So movement calculation is going to be very, very easy. I mean, if you just had a freestanding piece that was 12 dots long and you're like, that represents my 30 feet of movement, it could be so much more fluid. So I've got to go dig up my old Legos from childhood because I just have a bucket of like assorted random Legos. That'd be very fun for, instead of miniatures, using Legos to represent terrain and combat. So I'd love to do that.
You said bucket of assorted Legos, and I heard sunken treasure chest of pirates' gold that is invaluable.
Right.
I would
What is,
love to. So, oh, go ahead.
it's a big, like, so when I like pretty much from like as early as I can remember in life to like until I discovered video games when I was like 10 or 11, Legos were like my obsession. So bucket was the easiest thing. It's not, it's more like, I'm trying to think. Um,
Like a
what,
moving tote?
so, if you had like a big, like, um, what do you call it? Like a plastic, like moving, like storage container.
Hmm.
So longer but flatter and two of those. So like it would probably take each of us to move one of them. Like a
Nice.
lot. So I think they were in my parents' basement. So we'd have to. I got to dig them up and see if they're still there. But yeah,
That sounds really cool. I
yes,
think it's really funny because like if you were to look at the price of Lego now versus the price of Lego when, we were younger, people had, I mean, I remember going to my aunt's house as just like the, Christmas or whatever family gathering thing. Here's a giant trash can sized bucket of Lego. Go nuts, kids.
yep,
And we sure did.
yep.
And she threw them out because
Oh
once we
no.
all grew up, I mean, we all grew up. It's to the point where like I'm the last of those kids to
Yeah.
not have my own kids.
Oh wow.
Yes. And now that we're all in that age of, remembering the good old days, we all were like, hey, what happened to the Legos, the old PlayStation 1, like
Yeah.
all of those old things that became obsolete at the time. So we're like, oh yeah, just keep up with it. But
Right.
now we're like, wait, that was gold we should have sat on.
Yep. No, I think probably when I was in college and like a few years after, I would tell my parents, like, if you find old Star Wars action figures, old Legos, just toss them. And they didn't. And it used to be like, but now I'm like, thank goodness. Like, those will either be
Thank you.
awesome to play with or extremely valuable. Either way, thank
Hmm.
goodness. Like, so, yeah.
I remember for Halloween, I was Will Smith as his character in The Men in Black.
Yes.
And I remember distinctly as a child, like Burger King had them, I think, McDonald's, just the little
Yes.
neuralizer toys.
They
That,
always had
like,
branded toys there. It was so fun. Yeah.
$75 on
Whoa.
eBay for a Burger King kids meal toy neuralizer.
Which I'm sure it was a little plastic cylinder and it opens and there's a little LED light and that's it.
If
75
you wanted
bucks.
if you wanted
Wow.
the movie branded, like the official release licensed one, it was upwards of $200.
What?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's
It was crazy. So,
Well, honestly, I know
I didn't have a neuralizer.
we have a mutual who has a 3D printer. I mean, you could probably build one for under $30 with some basic LED wiring and stuff.
Sure, sure. But at the time, I was just so like, I had so many of those, I had to throw them away. I was tired of getting them.
Right? It's like every
And
time you
now
go to
you
get a
need to
thing of
tell
onion
me,
rings, like now I have this neuralizer.
yeah. I mean, you know how little kids are. As soon as you get that toy, if you don't get the next toy in whatever release, like this one is garbage. You charge it.
Yep,
Like,
100%.
if I
Like,
had a
I don't need a
collector
spare.
parent, yeah, if I had a collector parent that would have explained to me, like, hey, play with one, save one,
I don't know if Jimmy would have listened. I don't know.
I would have.
Yeah.
I would have. I hope whenever I have children, if that happens, that sort of thing. But I hope I remember to do that, and I hope my kids listen to me
Yeah.
because I mean, imagine just getting rich off a toy that you
That you bought when you were a kid.
considered useless. Yeah,
That'd be awesome. I'm
I
curious, the
think
part
that's
you're
pretty
working
cool.
on now, is that going to be part of the opening mouth mechanism, or is that the back where it kind of hinges?
I believe this is going to be the hinge.
Okay.
I think this up here. So you see where it's angled, or not anymore, I
Yeah,
guess,
that,
but
that
it
looks like
was
the back of a
angled here.
mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, I think these are going to be like his rear molars,
Okay.
and then this will be the front flat where,
We put
let's
the
see.
chest exterior there. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because if we look at,
Oh, yeah, it's got those curved teeth. Yeah, that's cool.
mhm. So something you had mentioned the other day when we were hanging out, you said that there were only going to be two Marvel movies in the entire year of 2024.
One Marvel movie, Deadpool and Wolverine. That's it, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah, I think they had. I know they kind of had a little bit of a backlog of things that they were like kind of slowly filming during the pandemic. And then they
hmm
released a lot of those last year. And because a lot of them, like Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantum, actually, we saw all of these together: Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, the Marvels. Most of those did not do great. So I think they're kind of reconsolidating and pausing, which will hopefully be really good. Um, but yeah, I know Deadpool and Wolverine, they did some extra reshoots on the movie, which are hopefully helpful. And I think
hmm
because of the TVA nature of it, I have a suspicion. This is totally speculatory on my part. I bet it's going to set up a new big villain instead of Kang, based on everything in real life that
in
happened in the MCU.
oh, well, yeah, of course. I feel like with the spoiler alert, I
Spoiler alert. Yeah,
feel like with the ending of Loki season 2, I
yeah,
think that was very definitive. Like Victor Timely is just a human man. He never became Kang the Conqueror.
right.
We hit a quick U-turn on that. We're
Yeah,
gonna put Loki in charge of all the timelines, and you know what? The God of Mischief is controlling something that looks oddly enough like Yggdrasil, the Tree of Life.
hmm,
So you know what? We're good with that, they said.
yep. And I'm just curious who the new villain's going to be. I mean, with Matt Shackman, who I like a lot, doing the new Fantastic Four, I bet it'll be Doctor Doom, but I don't know 100%.
So you again, we're such a Marvel nerds. You sent me that trailer as soon as it came out, and I watched it a good 10 times, I think,
Wait, for
at
Fantastic
work.
Four?
No,
Because it hasn't come out
for
yet.
Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yes.
And you questioned and you said in that one scene, which anybody feel free to check out and let us know, is that Doctor Doom? Because that comic book that they show, I think again you told me,
Yeah, if you
is
zoom in
the
at the very end,
episode, yeah, or is
it's a Secret Wars
the
comic
edition.
cover. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So he's
it would
in
make
that.
sense.
Yeah. I
It
do I
would
do
make
love from the trailer that they're all those that one set piece where they're fighting on the runes of the 21st Century Fox logo. I thought that was very, very funny.
I didn't catch that at first until you were like, look at that again.
Yeah.
That was clever.
I can't take full credit. I thought that looks familiar, and then someone online pointed out, and I was like, oh, that's genius. I love it. So,
Hmm,
yeah.
that's really cool. So let's see.
I hope it's
Hmm,
well done. I'm feeling good about it, but um I think it looks like Ryan Reynolds is a co-writer just like he was on the first two. So that should give
that's
us
good.
good continuity.
And it's
Got something in my eye.
rated R.
It is rated R, yeah. First
Okay, cool.
R-rated MCU.
That's what I
Um,
thought. I just
Disney's
was hoping they didn't
Disney's had
backtrack on that.
Disney's had R-rated stuff that they've done under different production banners, but there
Hmm.
hasn't been many straight up Disney movies that are R-rated. This will be one of the first,
Do
which
you
is cool.
remember how forced it was when Chris Pratt dropped the F bomb in
Guardians 3?
yes.
Yeah, that whole movie didn't work for me, which is I'm still shocked because the first two I thought were probably some of the best in the MCU, Guardians 1 and 2. Um,
Sure.
but the third one just really didn't work. Actually, I think I mentioned this in another podcast, but let's talk about it here. I realized it, if you gave me that movie before it came out, the way they had it edited and everything, the way we saw it in theaters, I realized they said, "Can you fix this with the least amount of reshoots and money spent possible?" I know exactly how I would have fixed it. Because the biggest criticism I had walking out of the movie was that the first two Guardians movies were very they were pretty dark for MCU movies, but they were very fun and whimsical. So for the
Hmm.
third installment, if you're gonna lean away from that and go for more just dark, um, don't shy away from it and pull your punches and give us some kind of bittersweet catharsis at the end. Because I felt like none of the main characters died, which not that I necessarily wanted that. I love all those characters, but first off, they knew that there was speculation that Drax was going to die because Dave Bautista said he wants to finish playing that character. So throughout the
Hmm.
movie, he kept getting hurt, and then they were like, "Oh, he's fine," and I was like, "Okay, that's just annoying," you know.
Hmm.
I would have cut that out, and then honestly, with what I mean, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it and if you care, but with what happens to Rocket, where he's wounded bad early on, and we keep seeing his flashbacks and memories and whatnot, they had that super cheesy scene where he's in the afterlife seeing his old friends who have died, and he's like, "Can I come be with you? Like, I'm ready." And they're like, "Of course, but not now." And I was like, "Boo!" in the theater. But if they had had that where it's he's like, "Hey, can I come be with you?" And they're like, "Yes," but or if it was the opposite where the friends are like, "Hey, come be with us," and he's like, "No, like I will one day, but I got to go be with my friends," and they're like, "No, like now's the time," and he died, and so then they're just avenging Rocket the rest of the movie. That would have hurt so bad in a good way. It would have been incredible.
I thought Rocket was supposed to die, if I'm being honest. From all the speculation that I had seen leading up to the movie and like all of the fan theories, like, oh, well, they showed him in the credits of the last or something. I don't know. I didn't really follow it too deep, but
Yeah,
I was expecting a dead Rocket.
yeah,
And with the way they played everything out, I thought it was going to be more of like a we need to bring him back to life. Same thing, redemptive sort of arc. And it definitely would have been more powerful, I agree, if Rocket would have made the decision. Because it did seem, and not, I mean, Rocket's tough, but it's also like he was kind of giving up when his friends were out there, like trying really hard. So that would have just been a slap in the face if they would have been like, you know, grasping for piece of the cure and Rocket is just like, I'm checking out. Like if it
yeah,
was his decision to leave
yeah,
versus I like the almost temptation of it
yeah.
that you had said.
And then that would have hurt so much more if his friends were like, "Come be with us. Like you've been suffering and fighting long enough. Time to come be at peace with us." And he was like, "I want to so bad, but I need to go be with my new family." And they were like, "It's too late." And then he just dies. Like, and then the rest of the movie is them avenging Rocket. And then the Guardians break up because they're like, Rocket, it turns out, was the glue that held us together. That would have been such a poignant, hurtful, cathartic, bittersweet way to end their trilogy. It would have been way better than what we got. So yeah, I was massively disappointed with that movie, which I was after Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. I thought, okay, well, Guardians will bring it back, and nope. And then the Marvels, great character chemistry that did not save that what felt like a first draft of a screenplay. No stakes, like the most like surface level plot. Hugely disappointing. So, yeah,
They
I hope
did
the MCU comes
introduce the
back.
X-Men. I think that was like
That
the
was cool.
Marvel's saving grace was that they introduced the X-Men universe. Otherwise, I mean, nah, didn't
And
really do it for me either.
yeah, and I like that we were talking about when we hung out last that if they had lingered more in that time between Infinity War and early on in
Yeah, yeah,
Endgame when
yeah.
they use the time travel, if they had had that, 5 years of dust post blip, or post snap, before the blip, where they came back, post snap, where half the population's gone, everyone's sad, that would have been a really good time to linger with the heroes who weren't dust and really get deep with character introspection. But, um, yeah, I think since the end of the Thanos saga, like the only saving grace has been the multiverse. And really, it's that they've been able to pull from old movies that weren't MCU, but that were Marvel properties that people liked and bring those characters in like an adjacent way. But the novelty of that's going to wear off very quick. Because, I mean, everyone loved Spider-Man No Way Home. I sure did, seeing all three Spider-Mans. That was so cool. But like
Hmm.
with the X-Men coming in, I'm like, okay, I want that to have ramifications MCU wide, or else that quick cameo of Beast played by Kelsey Grammer, I unless it has bigger ramifications, like I don't care really, you know? I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. It's a way to say that, like, hey, this universe has been happening this whole time simultaneously, and we're just now becoming aware of it. But are they gonna like go back and remake all of those movies? Which I hope not.
Right.
Or what I think would be really cool, since they've been exploring the whole television program to extend or to inform us on backstories,
Yeah.
like they should do little, I don't know, X-Men. X-Men should get their own individual series to explain them. Because if I'm honest, Echo, well, it was cool, but what was the point?
I that actually brings up a great thing I've been having an issue with lately in the MCU too, is like I thought Echo was brilliant, and then when it ended though, I was like, okay, she better come back. Like there better be a follow through of what are they setting up? Because like, dude, I mean, Shang-Chi, great movie. We haven't seen him since that movie. Like the Eternals. I know
Yeah,
this is unpopular. I loved the Eternals. Haven't seen any of those heroes, and I'm bummed. I know you, I liked it. I thought it was great. I thought it was very fun. I'm still shocked that it bombed the way it did. My only possible, and again, it worked for me. The only possible criticism I could think of is that it was too big in scope. It took on more than it could have in a feature length runtime. But I loved it. Who are some other heroes that we've only seen like once and they haven't come back? I guess really those are the main. I'm worried that they're setting up Echo and then we haven't seen her. Shang-Chi, the Eternals. I
I
mean,
thought we were
America
getting an
Chavez.
Ironheart show. Yeah, I thought we were
Yeah.
getting like an Ironheart show. I thought we were getting more of the young, the new age Avengers. Like, yeah, America Chavez,
Well, I mean,
Riri
at
Williams.
the end of the Marvels, they had what's her name, Kate Bishop, um, find Miss Marvel, which was cool. But what am I thinking? I lost my train of thought. You just mentioned someone,
Ironheart.
Ironheart. Yeah. Um, I thought she should have gotten her own miniseries to set her up.
I
Introducing
thought
her in
she
Black Panther:
was.
Wakanda Forever. That that
Yeah,
that didn't need to be in that movie. It detracted from the overall plot and the overall focus. Um, I think she is. I don't know what the production status is on it. I know it
I
got
mean,
delayed. I think they might have filmed it already though. I'd have to look it up.
feel free to edit this out.
Yes.
But also, I'll be the one to say it. I really think they took the chance of like a predominantly African American cast to introduce Riri Williams as Ironheart in that movie as kind of like, oh, well, it makes sense that they would be reaching out and working together, which I'm all for the camaraderie and for like the unionizing, I guess. But she, who is she? You know, from the movie, the backstory that we got from her is that she's just some super smart, kind of slacks off young black girl. But as far as like the comics are concerned, like she's supposed to take up Iron Man's mantle.
Yeah.
Like, how are we getting from some slack-jawed kid to the new Iron Man protege? And from
Yeah.
what they showed in the movie, I mean, she's really smart and she worked well with Shuri,
Yeah.
and the two of their minds worked well together. But that doesn't give me any sort of idea as to how she is going to become her own Iron Woman.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because talking about her arc in the comics, it feels like they kind of, before they brought her character into the MCU, they kind of set up Peter Parker to take that mantle role in the movies where he's like Iron Man's protege. So as a writer in the MCU, I would feel very free because of that to be like, all right, who's Ironheart going to be in the cinematic universe? Because in the MCU, as far as we can tell, she's never met Tony Stark. She would have been a
Yeah.
young kid for most of the time that he was a well-known Avenger, and then I mean, Wakanda Forever takes place I think what, a year or two after Endgame. We don't
Mm-hmm.
know if Riri Williams was dust or not during the snap. We never find that out. So she would probably have, if she did have a connection to Tony Stark, we haven't seen it, and it probably wouldn't be that major. So I'm curious what arc they're setting her up for, and it's very freeing, but that also means they could do it really well or do it not well. I don't know.
I think they do talk about it. So I don't think she was dusted because she's still 17 and progressing normally. Like she
Oh yeah, because
doesn't
she was
mention.
in college in Wakanda Forever, but they said she was like
Mm-hmm.
young for a college age student. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they don't mention any sort of like gap or delay that she had suffered based on the blip. So
true.
I guess context clues lead me to believe that she just kept going, which makes sense. But it's also interesting because with the Spider-Man ending, have you seen that
What Spider-Man
the,
ending?
the most recent Spider-Man movie, the end of
No, No Way
No Way
Home.
Home? Yeah.
Oh, oh, that's true though. You're right. I didn't think of
Mm-hmm.
that. Where,
Mm-hmm.
if no one knows who Spider-Man or Peter Parker is, who's going to take up Iron Man's mantle? And if maybe before she went to college, she like interned at Stark Enterprises, and we just haven't learned that. Maybe,
Well,
maybe Happy or Pepper Potts know her.
Tony, or no, I'm sorry, not Tony. Peter decides because he still like, has his Spider-Man abilities. He just decides that he's no longer going to be Spider-Man now that no one knows who he is.
Right.
And that would lead me to believe that if he stays far enough under the radar, ignores enough phone calls, that sort of thing, they're going to have to look to the next smartest kid.
That's
Peter
true.
was a young, gifted scientist, and he was incredibly smart. That was really what got Tony's attention, was how smart he was and
True.
how gifted scientifically he was.
He saw a
So
young
then
him. He saw a young him
it
in
could be that
Peter.
that Riri's Tony is Shuri, and she may use Wakandan technology to help her become
That'd be
Ironheart.
awesome. Vibranium
Because weren't
infused
they?
super suit. That'd be sweet. Well, yeah, at
It,
the end, it did kind of set up like a, hey, I'm going back to America. Sure, he's in Wakanda, but let's stay in touch type thing, you know?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and that would
And
fit
then,
because, like, if Stark Enterprises kind of saw what happened in Wakanda and reached out to Riri Williams, I like the play of having a living mentor to go back and forth with. So I'd rather see her work with Shuri and kind of maybe they have friction on what the best path is in difficult situations. That could be a cool way to explore the character more, as opposed to just Stark Enterprises being like, "Well, we need a new Iron Man. Here you go." You know?
so you know how T'Challa was more of like the calm, reserve, like that's why he got chosen to be the Black Panther. But Shuri was kind of like the rebellious wild child.
Yeah,
Let's blow it up. Let's make it fast.
yeah.
It'll be interesting if Shuri has to sort of switch gears and become a mentor figure and learn herself how to like, oh man, like because with her having to take up the Black Panther mantle for the time
And
being.
she struggled with that in the movie of, am I going to be more
Mm-hmm.
like my brother or more like my cousin Eric Killmonger, you know? And I liked that
Mm-hmm.
play because, yeah, if she has to explore now, like, how do I be to Riri what my brother was to me? That could be a really cool character growth arc to explore.
Absolutely. And that would make sense because Shuri is an incredibly smart and talented scientist
Yeah.
and engineer, So she'd be able to easily create something similar to Tony Stark's Iron Man suit with her own touches.
Oh yeah.
And at the end, when they had to 3D print essentially the new Purple Heart
Yeah.
or the Purple Flower,
Yeah.
just something in my mind leads me to believe that that energy is going to be like, we found trace amounts of it and we use that to make Ironheart.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with based on the capabilities we've seen of like vibranium based tech, they wouldn't need an arc reactor or anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It would be very, very interesting. But who knows? Because I thought she was supposed to get her own TV show.
I did too. Let me look and see if I can find the production status of that because I mean it was on the slate for a long time.
I thought so.
It says it's coming out this year. It's a miniseries. Um, let's see. I'm just looking at the cast to see if there's any established MCU characters that are confirmed to be in it.
Sure.
Um,
I would hope Letitia Wright at least.
honestly, I only see Dominic Thorne as Riri Williams. There's a few actors I recognize from other things, but not from MCU anything. Um,
Interesting.
oh, uh, it says here Sasha Baron Cohen is Mephisto. Interesting. He's Borat.
Oh yes, I'm well familiar with Sacha Baron Cohen's work.
That's interesting. I didn't think we'd be getting Mephisto this soon, but let me see if there's any trivia about the production updates or it was announced in 2020. It says in February 2023, an unnamed source claimed that Ironheart and Echo would be pushed back indefinitely, but then Echo
Mm,
came out, so this still says it's officially slated for 2024. It's already wrapped filming though, apparently, so it's done filming, and so yeah, I don't know. Um, maybe
hmm.
when I read that our only Marvel thing this year, well, I guess we already had Loki season 2, so I think it's the only Marvel movie is going to be Deadpool versus Wolverine, but we've already had Loki
That
season
wasn't
2 and
24.
Echo. Loki
Loki's
was
season two
oh,
wasn't
you're
2024.
right. No, you're right. So we haven't had any MCU things so far this year besides Echo.
Yeah.
Echo was the one thing because that was January.
Hmm.
I did
Which
really.
honestly, I mean, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say I really liked the. It was interesting for a show that did a lot of exploration with cutting out audio to kind of talk about the character's deafness.
Hmm.
They had a really good soundtrack for that show. So I was like, oh, that's cool. So I thought,
I thought it was interesting how they introduced Daredevil again, because when they had originally showed him in She-Hulk, I think you mentioned it to me. Like he is so much more Matt Murdock than he is Daredevil. And then correct me if I'm wrong, but in Echo, they don't show him at all as Matt Murdock.
no, he's just in that one scene as Daredevil. She fights him. That is one thing where I'm starting to lose track of not only what's canon and what isn't canon, but like timelines of things. Because
Hmm.
I'm almost done watching season 3 of Daredevil from Netflix. Because I hadn't seen season 3. I saw the first two, um, and so of the Netflix things, I need to finish season 3 of Daredevil. I got like 4 episodes left, and I haven't finished season 2 of The Punisher or season 3 of Jessica Jones. But I really liked those shows overall a lot, and I keep hearing different things on if this Daredevil Reborn show that I think we're getting that this year too. Is that a reboot? Is that a sequel? What's happening? I don't know because when they showed Kingpin Wilson Fisk in Hawkeye, he seemed like a variant of the Wilson Fisk we saw in the Daredevil Netflix show. So, and they haven't confirmed one way or the other. So I don't know what's happening with that.
True, true.
Yeah.
I I don't. It'll be interesting because I mean, with Netflix, it's a weird switch with all the characters that they started on Netflix, just to see like how
Yeah.
how are they going to bring them over, right? because we still haven't seen Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, nor Danny Rand in anything else. We've only seen Daredevil so far,
And
but
I
that
will
also,
still, I'll never forgive Marvel for cutting off Netflix because season 2 of Luke Cage and season 2 of Iron Fist both end on massive cliffhangers, and I was like, no.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, that was
mm-hmm.
I'm curious, where do you stand on the whole Iron Fist? You know, there's a lot of people who don't like the show. There's people who didn't like the show, and especially the first season. I can like the quality wasn't as high as the other Netflix superhero shows, but some people really don't like the hero himself, and I get those controversies. I'm curious what your take on it is. I don't think we ever talked about that.
I'm more of the latter. I just don't think. I mean, you know my stance on Batman, and we can
Yes,
get into that at any point if you would like to.
he's one of the
But
worst, most popular superheroes in my opinion.
exactly. So the way I see it is like, okay, so let's take another rich white guy, send him to,
A made up country in Asia,
yeah, but let's
Kunlun. Yeah,
exactly. Let's let's take from Asian culture and Asian tradition for this guy who's probably never left New York City on anything other than his own private jet, if that,
yeah,
right?
and suddenly he's their
And
chosen one. It's a
yeah,
very white savior bullshit narrative. Yeah, and
it
I feel like this
it
show.
is.
I felt like the show based on because I've never really read his comics, but I've looked up his story and stuff, and I feel
Mhm.
like in the show they were trying to have him be more PTSD ridden and feeling guilty about being an outsider, and then also having like his friend whose name escapes me, who comes in later in season 1 and in season 2, who's like resentful that this outsider is the chosen one and has the power. So I feel like they kind of tried to address it, but it's still, yeah, that's. And actually, I know some people who felt that way about Shang-Chi, where they were like, you're going to introduce the first major Asian hero in the franchise, and his power is martial arts. Like that feels kind of just shitty and derivative. And I was like, I get that. Like I thought it was a very quality movie. I loved it. I enjoyed it. But I can see how that is of all the powers to give him. It's like that feels a little,
It I agree.
yeah,
Same thing. I see it. But you have to remember, I mean, as as great as Stan Lee is, and the OGs are like they are a bunch of old white guys themselves.
it's
So
true.
like at the time when all of these comics were being written, I mean, Captain America is such a American good old boy, like that. I mean, the MCU is kind of shying away from some of those narratives, but they all still exist.
Yeah.
So I'm not really surprised by the fact that, oh yeah, we're gonna send this rich white guy to an Asian area and he's gonna be their savior because white guys are great. And Shang-Chi, we're gonna have this American Asian guy who knows a little bit about his culture, all of a sudden go learn about his culture, not for cultural development, but to get superpowers.
Martial arts superpowers at that. It's like, yeah,
You got to remember some of these were written and created when, by who.
right.
Okay.
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I love when people criticize Disney for being too woke. I'm like, they're just doing it for money. Like, if you look at the MCU as a whole, like, it might be slightly more progressive than the comics they're pulling from, but not by much. So, yeah,
No.
that's something they can improve on a lot, which, yeah,
It's it's interesting though to go back to comics pulling from and back to the X-Men
yeah,
crossover that we were talking about. The the huge, I don't know, I don't want to say elephant in the room because that's not the right term, but like based on the comics, Wanda Maximoff is Magneto's daughter.
hmm
That would
and
give us a perfect line into the X-Men, but in the way that they've done in the MCU, she's an orphan. Her parents died, and we watched them die.
Yeah, and they were not
So,
super or enhanced at all. Actually, I've seen some really interesting videos because I love Elizabeth Olsen's performance of Scarlet Witch in the movies and in
hmm
WandaVision. I thought it was a really
hmm
nuanced, well done performance. Her powers are awesome, but a lot of people who really resonated with her comic character, they really latched on to the fact that she's on her father, Eric, I forget his last name, Lensher. On her father's side, she's Jewish, Holocaust survivor is her father, and then on her mom's side she's like Romani, and so she had
hmm
the oppression of those two groups as well as being a mutant in the and then in the MCU they really just made her an enhanced individual who I actually just rewatched Age of Ultron yesterday for fun. Um like her and her brother started out as like working with Hydra as terrorists essentially, and then they kind of
hmm
come to the good side. A lot of people had a major issue with that, and I can absolutely see why. So, um, yeah, it's interesting.
So in that X-Men 97 show,
Yes.
the first Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff that I was ever introduced to was a bad guy. And she was with her brother, um, Quicksilver. There was who else? I know the big blob guy. He
Oh
was
yeah.
one of the he was in their crew.
Well,
They
didn't
had
they
a
have a
little bad
name? They were
boy's
like
name.
they followed
Yeah.
Magneto, and they were like the more violent
hmm
mutants, which I do love. It's been a few years since I've rewatched X-Men: The Last Stand, but when Magneto gives that big speech about how the humans are going to hurt us anyway, we have to stand up for ourselves. I was like, wow, the
hmm
way they filmed this, it's clearly meant to be like a bad guy's speech, but I was like, the way they wrote it, I'm like, no, I agree with Magneto. Like
hmm
he's spot on. Like if I was a mutant, I'd be like, sign me up, you know.
Yep.
So yeah, that's always been interesting. There's a lot of cool
But
discussions on in media where I hear a lot of people say when they have a villain who is kind of doing that more modern thing where you'll have a villain that makes sense, but the hero can't quite get behind them. They'll usually
mhm,
have that villain do something really random and vicious and cruel to like be like, still see, he's still the bad guy, and it's kind of a way to say that superheroes are kind of maintaining the status quo in a problematic way. So I pay attention to that because I'm like, I don't want to do that in my writing. So
sure. I just think it'll be interesting to see how they do that. Do you remember in WandaVision when they show that brief crossover to Evan Peters for a second?
well, yeah, because he was in a couple episodes. Because at first he was like spoiler alert if you haven't seen WandaVision, like they kind of revealed that he was a person in Westview who she like basically cast to play her brother, which that was
hmm
weird because when they first brought him in, I was like, oh man, her powers are bridging the multiverse. But then it was
hmm
like, no, that was a stupid joke in my opinion. I loved that show overall, but where he's like, my name's Eric Boner, I'm an actor, and I was like, what? Like that's stupid. Come on. I didn't love that reveal.
I'm wondering if the fact that Evan Peters was alive as a regular guy in MCU, if there is a version of Aaron Taylor Johnson alive in the XCU, I guess we'll call it, or the new X-Men universe that they're about to build, because that could be
Interesting.
something
That could be cool. I don't
for her to
think
latch on to.
I think that's more of a in real life that actor doesn't want to do superhero stuff anymore. So I don't
Mm,
think we would see him anymore.
okay.
I heard I could be wrong on this, but I remember reading somewhere, and I may be misremembering an interview where he was approached to play Quicksilver in the MCU with like a 10 movie contract, and he
hmm
said no. And then they were like, "Well, what if we kill you off in your first movie?" And he was like, "I'm in." So that's why he did Age of Ultron.
Wow.
Like
Okay.
he didn't have any interest in it, so they were like, "Well, we'll have you, and you get to play a character, and then we'll surprise everyone by killing you." And he was like, "Sure." Because he'd already done a few. I mean, really, he hasn't done too many sequels, mainly Kick Ass. Because it was the same with Godzilla. He got cast in the first Godzilla, and then they said we're going to make this a new monster series, and he said no, my character doesn't need to come back. So he doesn't really. I mean, he's been acting since he was like 8 years old, so he's probably over the whole sequel thing. And
Sure.
yeah, but that dude has
Uh,
range. I mean, Kick Ass, Godzilla, Quicksilver, like he's a very talented actor.
let's talk about the Godzilla series. We've been watching
Yes.
that.
Monarch Legacy of Monsters. We're about a little over halfway through that, and I've been enjoying that show
Hmm.
very much. Executive produced by Matt Shackman, who's worked on Always Sunny. He was the showrunner of WandaVision. He's doing the new Fantastic Four, but I'm pulling back to Marvel. Let's focus on let's talk Godzilla movies. I've
You're
been
good.
enjoying
You're
watching those
good.
with you, man. They've been fun. They're cool.
Yeah, I'm glad. So for those of you, I'll just fill you in on the behind the scenes. We are just catching up from start to finish on the Godzilla universe because Josh here didn't realize that there was a Godzilla universe.
No.
And with the release of that new Monarch program, I thought it'd be really cool if we were to kind of watch it chronologically because it does in fact have a timeline.
Yep.
So if that's something you're interested in, definitely check it out. I would say chronologically though, to make sure that you're getting the most of it. Um,
I've been impressed with the cohesion because up until recently, I thought like the MCU and like Star Wars were the most cohesive franchises, and I knew that Universal tried to do like a monster shared universe with like the Invisible Man and the Mummy movie, and those just all tanked. And so this has been really fun. I didn't realize they were doing this, and they've kind of been doing it semi quietly, but it's a fun little universe, and there's a lot of cool connections between the movies and the show. I've really been enjoying it.
mhm. And there are a lot of head scratcher moments, if you will.
We still got to figure out if it's Hollow Earth or wormholes. Don't tell us in the comments because we haven't finished it yet, or we'll finish it by the time we
Yeah,
upload this.
yeah,
But
please, because that would be a big bummer in my opinion. I would be
yes,
so sad.
we've been having a fun time speculating as we get little clues in the show. Be like, how are they doing that? How are the Titans moving around clandestinely with
Hmm.
their size? It's been fun.
And then, do we still have another movie to watch, or are we caught up on the movies until obviously Godzilla and Kong?
Yeah, that is I. Godzilla X Kong is kind of a silly title, but well, because we've let's see. Let me look up the
Given what we've seen so
Oh, I
far,
have I
though,
haven't
it
watched
makes
Godzilla
sense.
vs Kong yet.
Okay,
That
okay,
that
cool.
one takes place so that if we watch Godzilla vs Kong and then the one that's coming out this year, Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, and we finish Monarch, then I'll be caught up.
Okay, so I'm glad I didn't finish what I was about to say then, but
Good.
I will rephrase it. Given what you will have seen leading up to the newest movie, the title makes a little more sense.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Um,
Well, I
it
guess if you
is
go from Godzilla versus Kong to Godzilla times Kong, this is the team up. Which I saw when I went and saw Dune Part Two recently. I caught the trailer for the new Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, and it looks pretty cool. I'm excited.
there's there's backstory you're missing. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, in a nutshell, obviously, if the new movie is both of them, like nobody won,
Right.
like clearly, but the reasoning behind it, and obviously with everything that we've learned so far, it's more than just like look at that giant monster destroying the city.
Yeah.
Um, there's a really cool tie-in reason as to why it is now going to be Godzilla and Kong.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'm really excited for that.
I actually think with these movies too, one of the biggest strengths to make them fun and engaging, which is something the MCU did too, is that it all is taking place in our world, most of it in contemporary times, but it's showing how the world would be different not only on the big scale but at the ground level. Like in the MCU it was here's how the world would be if there were superheroes, and in these movies it's here's how the world would be if we knew that there were titans who could come around and crush your fucking city if the wrong thing happens. Like I
Hmm.
like seeing the very like day-to-day of lives of people who their world is otherwise like ours except there's this one big crazy difference. That's very fun for me to explore, and I think that's very good world building in a way, you know.
That's why I like The Boys, honestly. I
Yeah.
think that's such a refreshing take on superheroes,
Yes.
especially, you and I are such big superhero aficionados to not call ourselves geeks. But
This is the Nerds and
um
Friends podcast, so I think we're good. But
true. We'll come by it honestly here.
yes,
But that is exactly why I think like the boys universe is so cool, especially with like Gen V and the continuation of like,
Gen V
yeah,
was
you would be
incredible.
in college. Yeah,
Yeah,
you would have to deal with college drama and all of that on top of superpowers.
yeah.
And
And then you
that
have characters like Huey where they get radicalized against the superheroes who are revered in the media because one of them, was hopped up on drugs and killed his girlfriend. Like it's a very good
Hmm.
premise, and I enjoyed Gen V more than the boys though. I'm glad I had the world building of the boys going in, but I thought Gen V had tighter writing, more interesting characters. I'm really glad they're going to tie those shows in together, and I'm
Hmm.
shocked at how little they marketed Gen V because that was a very well done show. Like it wasn't super high budget, but it was produced very well and was very engaging. Great set design, great action pieces. I loved it. I was very blown away by it.
I liked the subtle tie-ins that they included already, and the things that kind of made you like. I almost wanted to go back and watch The Boys to see
Yeah,
just how
a little.
how on it were they. Like, were there people from Gen V in The Boys that I didn't notice based on the scenes that they showed me of The Boys in Gen V? I doubt it, but like it was so well
But
shot and well done that I'm like,
yeah, well, because
I
I
would.
think they would sometimes show events that were depicted in The Boys from a slightly different angle where there were these new characters in, which is hard to
Hmm.
do perfectly, and they did it really well in that show. Really, the only parts of Gen V I didn't love, which spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it, go check it out. It's awesome. Um, the Billy Butcher and Homelander cameos were a little bit, but the rest of it was good. I don't like Billy Butcher as a character, which is an unpopular opinion. I think he's a very good like foil to Huey's character in season one, and then as a force of like crazy danger in season two of the boys. But in season three, I was kind of like, why is he still here? Why are they putting up with this asshole? Like, I love Carl Urban as an actor; he's brilliant. But that character, I feel like they would need to have some big changes to him to make him interesting, or I'd be okay if he finally died from whatever. Like, I'm trying to remember, he has like the superpowers he gets are killing him or something. I forget. It's the
It's
the
slowly
serum he
killing him
took, yeah.
as he uses them.
And I'm like,
So
good.
I have a
Like,
I have a potentially hot take, but to
ooh,
go off of that.
yes,
So if Homelander is Superman, I
yep,
think Billy Butcher is honestly our Batman, if you will.
okay,
And let me explain. So by that I mean he's
right,
very obviously like jaded by the whole superhero community. He's been wronged, but instead of like, okay, your wife cheated on you, just break it down. Your wife cheated on you with somebody at work and had a kid. That's a Jerry Springer Maury episode, you know?
yeah,
Add to the fact that, the guy has superpowers and he's like the world's hottest celebrity and all of the things. Okay, cool. That's pretty insult to injury, embarrassing. But like you're not just gonna go like shoot up your wife's place of work because she had an affair with a man at work. But now, because it was a superhero, you're saying death to all superheroes. And I
right,
get it. There are reasons why the superheroes are bad. Like he is doing the right thing for the wrong reasons.
yes.
Same thing with Batman. He's going out and beating the shit. Sorry, I don't know if you cuss on
Oh yeah, we do. We
on
have
the
no
podcast.
content restrictions. You're good.
Okay. Well, Batman's going out and beating the shit out of people who have like mental illness. Shout out to the Joker. Or
Yeah,
people who are like broke and just trying to come up on a dollar, or
yeah. Like,
people
oh,
who are
I'll
obvious.
work for the Riddler. He's gonna pay me $1,000, and I gotta pay my family's medical bills. Like, yeah,
Hmm. He beats the hell out of these henchmen and then he tries to catch the bad guys. Ah, no,
right.
Batman, why don't you go get some help? Because you're just trying to beat people up so that you can exercise your demons. And
Hmm.
it's kind of the same thing with Busher. But
Yeah,
like, if you notice in the Justice League, Batman is that kind of like, okay, we're kind of just going to let him go do his thing. And usually it turns out okay. Butcher, though, same thing with Homelander. Homelander is what Superman would be if he didn't have to be America's hero. He's just
a
I'm
person who's
I'm the
awful.
closest thing to a god you guys have. Yeah, like I'm gonna do whatever I want because stop me.
Hmm.
Um, it's the
And
same thing with
he has
Butcher.
childhood trauma. It doesn't excuse what he does, but it adds the layers of that's why he's so
Hmm.
fucking toxic and everything. Yeah,
And then you look at Butcher, and it's the same thing. He's like, oh well, nobody's gonna tell me anything, and I'm gonna do this. And like you said, why is he still around? Like that might very well come into play. I mean,
True.
If anybody's read the comics, don't spoil it because, as far as I know, they're trying to stay true enough to the comics. But
I think Robert,
I
or wait, now is it Robert Kirkman who writes those or no? He does
think
Invincible.
that,
Robert Kirkman
yeah,
does
that's
Invincible.
Invincible.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, never mind then. That's
Um, but yeah, I could see honestly, like especially with uh the Mother's Milk character,
yeah,
like him being such a he's a hothead but working on it, and
yeah,
he's actually exercising his demons and he's trying to still do the right thing, but
but the right
for the
way.
right reasons. Yeah,
Yes.
I really hope Huey is going to lean into that more so because he's always taken care of Butcher, but at a point he's like, you know what, man, fuck you, I'm done with it. Like I can't be you and myself.
Yeah,
So I think hopefully Huey will kind of lean in towards that and they can kind of drop the dead weight on Butcher, but it's yet to be seen.
I'm excited for season 4, and however they tie in Gen V because that was a fantastic season. I really enjoyed that. Speaking of Invincible,
Um,
though, when is that coming
yeah,
back?
yeah. I thought you told me actually.
I think it's either
I
this month or
do not.
April. I will look it
I
up
hope
right
it's
now.
this month. I would love it if it was this month. That'd
I
be
don't. I think it. I'm a little skewed because I watched. I know there was a huge gap between season 1 and 2. I watched it all with you pretty recently. I saw yeah, March 14th. So tomorrow actually is episode 5 comes out. Yeah, but like
you
I
don't
thought
say.
season 1 was a lot tighter in terms of the writing than season 2. But maybe they're building to something that we haven't gotten yet. I don't know.
So I feel like we kind of have to like I don't want to say ignore season one, but let season one be its own start and finish project, and
Okay.
then season two, because like season one, honestly, like we could have ended the show there. That would
True.
have been crazy, and I mean, there would have been some definite cliffhangers and things like that that weren't explained,
Right.
but that was a wicked story we got in season one, and all of the
Yeah.
different like little tiny
And
subplots that
kind
went
of like
on.
the boys, it was very much like let's have a superhero narrative that's a lot more gritty and hurtful in the way real life can be with people who act more like real people to some degrees. And then you have Omni Man, who's very human in terms of how awful he is, but also very inhuman in the power he wields. And yeah, I don't know. I actually I heard a quote from Seth Rogen, who's an executive producer on The Boys, and he said he's not a fan of the MCU, and he said like because of the MCU making superheroes so much more mainstream, we can do more nuanced, introspective versions of superhero stuff like The Boys and Invincible because of that. So, um, yeah, I think it's cool that they're doing a more elevated version as well as we still get quality stuff from the MCU. I'm enjoying it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And how you said it's interesting how they're doing more relatable, almost like real time events. So like with the boys, how that plane crash was supposed to simulate I believe the plane crash was
That was kind of a reference to a scene in like that 2004 Superman with Brandon Routh, right, where he rescues everyone from a plane that gets like shot down by Lex Luthor or something. It
honestly,
seemed
I
like that, and
believe
then in this version, though, it's just Homelander just torching the whole thing to cover up one political assassination. You know,
if you wouldn't mind, if you could just fact check it, I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be their like 9/11 style event in
in
that
the boys.
universe. Yes.
Well, I think what happened with that was from remembering like the way it's shown in the show is that like, hey, there's this plane crash. It made national news. People were like, "Oh my goodness!" And Homelander tried to save people, but he couldn't. And then there's people who are like, in this case, they're right. They're like the conspiracy theorists who were like, "We think Homelander did this on purpose. Homelander did this on purpose." And like the one character, the Dean in Gen V, no, I guess spoilers for Gen V. You know, her family was on that plane, so that's why she's out to like be an undercover person at the university and try to fuck over superheroes, which is cool. You know?
just do me a solid though. Google
Yeah,
that for me.
Google it.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, don't I see what you're saying though? Like in that world, did they have a 9/11 with the
I'm
suits
pretty
and
sure
everything?
that's what it was. And then I think um I don't some one of my coworkers had put me onto this theory that like you were saying that a lot of the superhero universes have real life events like the blip being such a big earth-shattering event and this plane crash being such a big earth-shattering event. It's just I think it was a different bridge perhaps or something of the sort.
In the show it doesn't come up at all. According to Reddit, in the comics, there
Yes,
is
it
a
is the comics.
it's 9/11. The soups try to stop it and they mess it up. Um, Only one plane crashed into the Brooklyn Bridge that day, so the superheroes kind of stopped the rest. And there's something about Homelander being super bad. Yeah, so
Hmm.
I just kind of did a quick Reddit once over, but so yeah, they had so in the show they veer away from that apparently. So, but in the comics that was how it was. Is that it played out different because the soups were involved, but there was still loss of life from the civilians and
Hmm.
stuff. So
Hmm. Well, like you were saying earlier, it's interesting to see how it's like all superpowers and da 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 da, but then like the blip, people lost family members suddenly for years, and they have
yeah,
to deal with that. Like this, like the ramifications of someone becoming a dean to superheroes
hmm
to kill them before they ever grow because you like they add those real world or like logical applications to superheroes and you're like this could happen it makes enough sense even though
right.
it's so far-fetched it
Well,
still
it's like
makes
in
enough
that
sense.
world, if you had superheroes, if that was the one thing different, how would everyone else respond? And that's what we're getting with the boys,
Mm-hmm.
and to a lesser extent in the MCU. I would have loved to see an MCU show set, a year after the Thanos snap in New York City with Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, having to navigate all these like organized crime bosses taking over because there's so much chaos and places that are abandoned by people who have vanished, and just like the whole dichotomy of the city changing. That would have been so cool to see those characters navigate that. I would have really liked that.
Absolutely. And honestly, I mean,
They could go
what
back and do that.
happened to them? Did they get blipped? Did they survive? Are they not important enough to get blipped, so to speak? I mean,
Yeah, because it was so weird. Like
it sounds funny.
when we see Wilson Fisk in Hawkeye, it's implied that he didn't get blipped away because he was working during that time, because that's when we see Echo's father working for him in his organized crime thing, and that's when
Mm-hmm.
Hawkeye kills him when he goes into Ronin mode.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know if Daredevil was gone and not stopping Wilson Fisk during that time, or what. So um I need to finish Daredevil season 3, but actually it's cool if you spoil it for me. Where does that end in terms of Wilson Fisk? Is he in jail? Is he free? Because if he was, or let me finish it. But if he was in jail and the blip happened, I could see how he could get out and take more power, because suddenly the prison system just collapses because there's not enough prisoners or guards. And so I don't know. They could have explored that more, but I don't know.
I
I
don't honestly remember.
that's yeah. I've got like 4 episodes left, so I'm almost done. But
Will you tell me then? Because I
there will
believe,
be a part 2 to
yeah,
this. New Lego set, new follow
absolutely.
up on Daredevil.
Yes, yes. I'm trying to get some progress made on this. It's now down to the intricate little pieces for the
Oh
time
yeah, those
being.
little teeth.
Hmm. Making sure that I use the right color brick, even though there's not very many, but
I'm
it's a
excited
little
to see
hard to
how the
do when you're
hinge mechanism
colorblind.
work. Yeah, I was gonna say this is I'm impressed because even on the camera, those different shades of red and the gum, and they're pretty subtle differences.
Yes. So yeah, for those of you that don't know, I am not black and white colorblind, but shade colorblind. So, like these reds and browns are honestly really blending into me.
Are you
Um,
red green colorblind? That's the most common form of it.
it's weird. I'm sure it's not the scientific term, but I call it shade colorblind because depending on what angle the light is hitting a certain surface, I will see it a certain color. Like that's why a few times I've picked this up really closely and turned it because at one point I had a red brick here next to the rest of the brown ones, and then I noticed it was red. But when I
Interesting.
had first placed it, it was just brown to me.
Interesting. Yeah, growing up, my best friend growing up, who's still a good friend of mine, shout out to Clayton, who's been on the podcast. He's red green colorblind to where red and green completely indistinguishable to him. But so I asked him
Mm.
when we were younger, because he's a few years older than me, so he was teaching me how to drive. And I said, "How do you tell the stoplights if you're red green colorblind?" And he said, "All stoplights in the U.S. are different brightness. The green is brighter." On purpose for
Oh,
that reason, so people with red or green color blindness can drive because it's the green is brighter and they typically are oriented up and down that same way, but not always. You can see the horizontal or vertical in some
it's
places.
still
So
usually left to right though.
true, but I guess
It's either
not as a
usually top
rule.
to bottom or left to right. That's one thing that I learned. Like when
Oh,
I asked them, I was like, hey, if there's ever an instance like would my color blindness affect me from getting my license? So they're like, no, as far as the US is concerned, it's always going to be top to bottom or left to right.
okay, that makes sense. So
Hmm.
yeah, so there's always a benchmark, and then the flow of traffic around you, you can intuit it to some degree.
True,
Yeah,
but probably shouldn't go off of that one.
true, true. But
Um, I can't join like I can't fly a plane or anything like that, unfortunately. But I also would be too afraid to do something like that.
what? How would that? I feel like that would affect driving more than flying a plane. There's no like signals in the sky for go or stop. Like I'm curious why that would affect it.
More for reading the instruments and seeing the things on the control panel and being able to tell like I mean, when you're landing, for example, the lights I learned this just and this might not even be true or it might be outdated, but when I was in it was a class, we did a computer flight simulator.
Oh,
Um, red over white, you're doing all right. When you were landing, as long as your red lights stayed over the white lights, you were at the right angle that you were flying in and you were going to land okay.
interesting.
Um, red over red, you're probably dead.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Uh, white over white, you're going too high or something like that. But essentially, like there are different lights,
Like an
like the people
altimeter
waving
thing.
the lights. Yeah, being able to tell what like is that a red light or a green light? Am I good or am I bad? Is a little more important when you're in the air.
Yeah, but I feel like if it's all computerized instrumentation, can't they just have a setting for people with color blindness?
I'm not mad at it.
Yeah,
I'm okay with it.
that's true. I
Put
flew.
it that
I've
way.
told you this in person. I flew a Cessna one time, and I was like, I do not like how responsive this thing is. Fuck this. And so
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah,
like
man.
flying. I do not like
I'll
flying.
stick to my motorcycles.
Yes.
That's plenty dangerous enough for me, honestly. And it's more so the other drivers. So, like if I could ride a motorcycle in the sky, oh yeah, I'd be all over
Right.
that.
Well, they have those little like motorcycle looking hovercraft in Dubai. Have you seen those? They're
I have
basically like
not
speeder bikes from
actually.
Star Wars. Yeah,
What?
yeah. I'll let me pull this up. I'll send you a link.
So yeah, while we're at it, this angled area, like I thought was definitely gonna be the back. Looks like this may be part of the hinge mechanism.
Okay, that makes yeah, because
Um,
the way the teeth are angled, that definitely looks.
the teeth back there. Excuse me.
I'll message you this photo after the podcast since your phone's there,
Sure.
but I'll edit it into the video because it is a cool looking little. So you know how they have those drones with the four propellers on it, kind of like those larger drones.
Hmm.
It's one of those just big enough that a person can sit on it.
Oh, okay.
Here, I'll just you can see on the camera there.
That's dope.
Yeah,
That's really cool. That
I'm
feel like that would
curious,
handle like an ATV.
probably, and I figure it's got some. It must take a ton of power or fuel or something to keep it in the air like that with the weight of an adult human on there. So I don't know
Hmm.
because
Yeah,
they
it's
have
probably
the
loud.
yeah They had those jetpacks you can see, like they'll do it in like tourist places on ports where it's water based and it just shoots. It has a tube and it shoots out all that water. But like, I don't know. I'm curious how maneuverable those are too, or like how easy it is not to crash, or I don't know.
Well, have you seen this might be a video for you to look up. They've done like Iron Man rescues with those jetpack suits where they will literally like go
Oh,
from a
I have
boat
seen those.
to another boat, pick somebody up and fly them back.
They had like a SEAL team that like qualified with those, and they used them on a few
Hmm.
missions. Yeah, I figured
Yeah,
those are
that's really
pretty.
cool.
They've got to be temperamental for maintenance, and especially using it with saltwater air. That's got to degrade
For
the
sure.
components. So the maintenance is that I don't think that would ever be standard military issue. That'd be only for like specialized, SEALs and Force Recon and Rangers and stuff like that. But oh, those teeth are looking good.
Yeah, it's getting up there.
Nice. That's awesome.
It looks like those are going to be like a lip, maybe,
Oh
because
yeah.
there's a small gap built here if you can see it. That looks
Oh,
like that's where the clasp mechanism is going to go.
that makes sense.
But let's dig a little deeper and find out.